The bubbly Mahnoor, the lively Mahnoor, whose smile could light up a room and whose energy was contagious. Those are the words of Dr. Usama Khan. And it's absolutely heartbreaking, isn't it? He's a medical colleague who was suddenly forced into the unimaginable nightmare of treating his own friend. Before we get into the headlines and the hard statistics today, we really need to ground ourselves in this human reality. We're talking about a young, dedicated professional whose entire life and career were forever altered in just a single instant.
Welcome to This Explainer, Anatomy of a Crime, the Dr. Mahnoor case and Pakistan's acid epidemic. Today, we're taking a very serious, documentary-style look at a deeply troubling issue. We're going to examine the horrific attack on Dr. Mahnoor in Quetta and really use it as a lens to understand the broader systemic epidemic of acid violence in Pakistan. Relying on reporting from the Express Tribune and some incredibly comprehensive data from the Youth General Assembly, or YGA, we're going to dissect the anatomy of this crime, the massive failures in workplace safety it exposes, and the ongoing fight for true justice. All right, let's walk through the timeline to understand exactly what went down on that fateful Saturday. We're looking at a verified sequence of events here, and it highlights a complete and total failure of safety protocols. Dr. Mahnoor, a female postgraduate doctor, was on duty. She wasn't walking alone down a dark street. She was literally inside the surgical ward of Quetta's Civil Sentiment Hospital. An assailant somehow entered this secure space, deliberately threw acid on her, critically injuring her, and then just fled the scene. Right after the attack, a desperate rescue effort unfolded right there inside the hospital as her own colleagues fought to stabilize her. And while the suspect was later killed in a police shootout, Dr. Mahnoor began a grueling, painful recovery process. Honestly, her resilience in the face of such unspeakable trauma is just astounding. Think about this for a second. A hospital, a surgical ward, is fundamentally a sanctuary of healing, right? It's an environment wholly dedicated to saving lives. The fact that a healthcare professional was targeted with such a life-destroying weapon in the very place she works to heal others, that is a chilling breach of workplace safety. It really begs the question, if our doctors aren't safe in their own wards, where on earth are they safe?
Naturally, the sheer brutality of this violation acted as a massive catalyst. The reaction was immediate, and it was fierce. Doctors in Quetta went straight into a strike, flat out refusing to work without basic safety guarantees. And this micro-incident, it sparked macro outrage. All across social media, a nationwide demand for justice just erupted. High-profile celebrities, we're talking Mahira Khan, Yasir Hussain, Sahifa Jabbar, they publicly condemned the attack. And they didn't just express sorrow, they demanded actual, systemic protection for women and healthcare workers. Society was forced, really forced, to look this ongoing terror right in the eye.
Section 2, Zooming Out, a Systemic Epidemic. Let's pull back the lens a bit, because to truly grasp the gravity of what happened to Dr. Mahnoor, we have to look beyond Quetta at the reality of corrosive violence across the entire nation. To do that, we need to clearly define exactly what we're dealing with. According to the Youth General Assembly's report on acid crimes in Pakistan, an acid attack is a form of premeditated violent assault. And that word, premeditated, is absolutely crucial here. This isn't a crime of sudden passion. The perpetrator acquires the acid, stalks the victim, and carefully plans the strike. The intent is horrifying: to maim, torture, or kill, often targeting the face to leave permanent physical and emotional scars. It's a calculated strike, very frequently rooted in patriarchal violence, revenge, or twisted ideas about perceived dishonor. And that patriarchal element, it's undeniably backed up by the data. The YGA report lays out this staggering statistic. 80% of known acid attack victims are women. 80%. This number unequivocally underscores the deeply gendered nature of the crime. Yes, men are sometimes targeted, but fundamentally, this is an extreme form of violence directed disproportionately at women and girls. It's a dark reflection of deep-seated societal inequalities. But wait, the findings get even more chilling. Nearly 70% of these victims are under 18 years of age. I just want that to sink in for a moment. The primary targets of this premeditated, life-altering violence are overwhelmingly young, incredibly vulnerable girls. It's just devastating. Now, while the horror of the Quetta tragedy feels incredibly fresh and immediate, data from the Acid Survivors Foundation Pakistan actually reveals a measured decline overall. From 153 reported cases in 2014, the number dropped to 73 in 2016, so that's a 52% reduction. Valerie Khan, the chairperson of ASF Pakistan, noted that successful awareness campaigns and key legislation have genuinely made an impact. But as Dr. Mahnoor's case so tragically proves, while the numbers might be down, the danger is far, far from eliminated.
And the data also starkly highlights the geographical reality of this threat. Acid violence has historically been heavily concentrated in Punjab, particularly South Punjab, which logged 578 cases in this dataset. However, if you look further down, the tragic attack on Dr. Mahnoor happened in Balochistan. This proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that while epicenters definitely exist, the underlying mechanisms enabling this violence, the societal attitudes, and, crucially, the availability of the weapon itself, are absolutely a nationwide threat.
Which brings us to Section 3, the legal landscape versus the fatal loophole. If we know what this crime is, and we know exactly who it targets, how do such atrocities persist? Don't we have strict laws against this? Well, let's investigate the legal framework.
Surprisingly, on paper, the legal response is actually quite severe. The Acid Control and Acid Crime Prevention Act of 2011 was a massive milestone. It amended the Pakistan Penal Code, specifically Section 336B, officially classifying acid attacks as hurt by dangerous means. And the promised punishments? They are intense. We're talking a minimum sentence of 14 years, extending all the way up to life imprisonment, plus a mandatory minimum fine of 1 million rupees. And this law actually worked to an extent. It helped bump the conviction rate for acid violence up to nearly 10% in 2016, which sadly is vastly higher than a national average for other forms of violence against women.
So we have this crazy juxtaposition. On one side, we have justice on paper, harsh, uncompromising legal penalties waiting for perpetrators. But on the other side, we have the grim reality of danger on the streets. The actual weapon used to commit the crime remains incredibly easy, dirt cheap, and completely unregulated to acquire.
And this brings us right to the core of the problem. The YGA report explicitly exposes a fatal systemic loophole, the absolute failure to enforce the 1919 Poisons Act. Let that sink in. A century-old law meant to regulate corrosive substances. Yet today, there is virtually zero control over the sale of acid. The report points out a massive blind spot. Even when an attacker is successfully prosecuted and sent to jail, absolutely no action is taken against the person who sold them the acid. This lack of interconnectedness means sellers walk away completely scot-free, free to just keep handing out liquid weapons right over the counter.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. We started with Dr. Mahnoor, a bright, lively professional viciously attacked in a sanctuary of healing. We've seen the horrifying statistics, and we've seen the strict laws that exist to punish the guilty. But if the weapon itself remains cheap, completely unregulated, and available on practically any street corner without a single consequence for the seller, can our hospitals, our public spaces, or our communities ever truly be safe? It's a profound question of systemic safety and true justice that requires a real answer, not just written on paper, but enforced on the streets. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.